Let's start off by crediting South Florida. They played with the appropriate level of force and competitiveness. Really did a great job.
Nobody saw this level of absolute chaos coming, but the entire landscape of women's basketball is currently standing on the edge of a cliff, and the Golden Goose might be the one to push it over. For months, fans have watched a quiet, bubbling war unfold right in front of the cameras. But what was happening behind the scenes was a million times more toxic. We are talking about billion-dollar television deals, massive egos, historic levels of jealousy, and a breaking point that has finally been reached. The rumors circulating right now aren't about a simple trade request or a few extra vacation days. The word echoing through locker rooms and executive offices is that Caitlin Clark is prepared to pull the plug entirely and resign from the WNBA. And the wildest part, confirmation of this terrifying possibility didn't come from some random sports blog or anonymous insider. It slipped directly from the mouths of the very people who tried to keep her down in the first place, specifically voices connected to the Team USA coaching camp. To understand how we arrived at a moment where arguably the most famous basketball player on the planet could be ready to walk away from the league she just revitalized, you have to look at the absolute implosion happening inside the players' union right now. This is a story filled with greed, sabotage, resentment, and a young generational talent who finally realized she holds every single card in the deck. But this storm didn't begin with a contract dispute. The resentment didn't start over money. The bad blood was poured months ago by the very establishment that was supposed to protect and elevate her. The foundation for this massive fallout was laid before Caitlin Clark ever played her first professional game, specifically through the hostile tone coming from Team USA coach Cheryl Reeve. When the Olympic roster was announced and Clark's name was mysteriously missing, the establishment tried to frame it as nothing more than a routine basketball decision. They argued she lacked professional experience. They insisted veteran players had earned their spots through years of loyalty and sacrifice. They claimed the rookie simply hadn't proven herself at the highest professional level yet. On the surface, it sounded procedural and fair. But anyone paying attention could see the pure spite dripping from that decision. Reeve had a documented pattern of passive-aggressive comments about the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, publicly telling fans to pump the brakes on the hype and suggesting that the league had plenty of other established stars who deserved the spotlight. When reporters pressed the Team USA camp about the undeniable television ratings and ticket sales Clark would bring to Paris, the responses were noticeably dismissive. They essentially told the world they didn't need her, that a gold medal was inevitable regardless of her presence, that they were not going to turn the national team into a marketing circus simply to satisfy new fans who discovered the sport through her. This wasn't just a roster omission. It was a loud and deliberate message from the old guard of the WNBA to the new face of the sport. They wanted to humble her. They wanted to remind her that no matter how many millions tuned in to watch her shoot from the logo, no matter how many arenas sold out because of her name, she was still at the bottom of their long-established hierarchy. But ignoring the biggest draw in the game comes with consequences, and the backlash was immediate and unforgiving. While decision-makers congratulated themselves for defending veteran prestige, the reality of Clark's rookie season was spiraling into something far darker on the hardwood. What was supposed to be a triumphant entry into professional basketball quickly transformed into a brutal physical gauntlet. This wasn't ordinary tough defense. It wasn't harmless rookie hazing. It crossed a visible line. There were blindside hits that left fans stunned. Elbows that caught her across the face. Flagrant shoves that sent her crashing violently to the floor. At times, opposing players appeared to celebrate the physical punishment. Officials repeatedly swallowed their whistles, allowing a level of contact that would never be tolerated if directed at another marquee name in the league. The standard seemed inconsistent, and the message was unmistakable. It became increasingly clear that a silent target had been placed on her back by veterans furious that this rookie was absorbing the spotlight they once held. They resented the charter flights that suddenly became standard. They hated the sold-out arenas packed with fans wearing number 22 jerseys. They despised the reality that the entire financial trajectory of the league was now tied to a 22-year-old from Iowa who had arrived and instantly shifted the culture. Across the league, locker room tension felt toxic, fueled by bitterness from established stars unwilling to pass the torch. And through all of it, the Players' Association, the very body created to protect athletes and ensure safe working conditions, remained noticeably silent. They didn't issue strong condemnations of the targeting. They didn't publicly demand better officiating standards. They didn't rally in visible defense of the player who was driving unprecedented revenue into the sport. That silence didn't just linger, it detonated. Just weeks ago, the WNBPA officially opted out of its collective bargaining agreement. This decision marked the union crash-out that has sent shockwaves throughout the entire sports landscape. For years, WNBA players have advocated for higher pay, improved benefits, and a larger share of league revenue. And now, thanks almost entirely to the explosion in viewership, sponsorship deals, and massive television contracts fueled by the Caitlin Clark effect, the union finally has tangible leverage to demand a complete financial restructuring. They want millions more added to the salary cap. They are pushing for guaranteed luxury travel standards across the board. They are demanding a significantly larger slice of the broadcasting revenue pie. On paper, those demands align with long-standing calls for fairness. But here is where the irony becomes impossible to ignore. Union representatives and veteran players are actively using Clark's record-breaking ratings and economic impact as negotiating ammunition, while simultaneously refusing to acknowledge her role in creating that leverage or protecting her when she becomes a target on the court. They are leveraging the audience she brought into the league to secure historic paydays, even as members of that same union continue delivering cheap shots during games. They are, in effect, holding the league hostage over a pie they did not bake. The audacity of opting out of an agreement to demand generational wealth while failing to publicly defend the athlete generating that wealth is staggering. It exposes a contradiction that fans can no longer ignore. The same establishment that questioned her value on the Olympic stage is now benefiting from the financial tsunami she unleashed. And as tensions escalate behind closed doors, one possibility looms larger than ever. If Caitlin Clark truly realizes the power she holds, she may decide that walking away is the ultimate move. It's a level of greed and resentment that has fractured the league behind closed doors. The veterans want the Caitlin Clark money, but they want the Caitlin Clark phenomenon erased from the narrative. They want to act like this sudden financial explosion is simply the natural evolution of the league, rather than the direct result of one single player permanently shifting the gravity of women's sports. But that incredibly arrogant strategy completely backfired the moment they realized Caitlin isn't trapped inside their ecosystem. Unlike veterans who have spent years fighting for scraps and depending entirely on the WNBA for their income, Clark operates on a completely different financial plane. Her rookie contract pays roughly $76,000 a year, an almost laughable number compared to the tens of millions she earns through endorsement deals with global brands like Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm. She does not need the WNBA's paycheck to survive, to thrive, or to maintain her status as a global icon. If anything, playing in the WNBA right now could be viewed as the worst financial and physical decision she could possibly make. She risks serious injury every single night against resentful veterans. She flies across the country into hostile arenas. She endures relentless scrutiny and a non-stop media circus. And she does all of that for a base salary that barely covers the cost of her security team. League executives are finally realizing something terrifying. She holds all the leverage. If she decides the physical punishment, the union chaos, and the blatant disrespect aren't worth it, she can simply walk away. And this isn't an empty threat. It is a very real, very dangerous possibility that has sent panic through the highest levels of the league. The second she removes herself from the equation, the sold-out arenas disappear. The billion-dollar television deals get renegotiated. The massive salary cap increase the union is demanding evaporates overnight. The threat of resignation became even more real with the aggressive emergence of alternative playing options. Rumors have been spreading rapidly about the new unrivaled 3-on-3 league, spearheaded by stars like Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. This private venture is heavily funded and actively recruiting the biggest names in the sport, offering multi-million-dollar payouts for just a few months of off-season play. It's the perfect escape hatch. Reports suggest that aggressive, record-breaking offers have already been presented to Clark's management team, numbers that make her entire WNBA rookie contract look insignificant. And that's just domestically. Overseas markets in Europe and Asia, which have historically paid elite women's basketball players millions, are watching this internal drama unfold with open arms. If the WNBA continues alienating its biggest draw, an international powerhouse could easily step in, present a massive guaranteed deal, and treat her like royalty, without the toxic undercurrent of veteran jealousy that has defined her rookie season. So the question becomes unavoidable. Why should she stay in a league where the union leverages her value while failing to protect her? Why should she compete under coaches and executives who have publicly minimized her impact and privately harbored resentment? The answer is becoming clearer by the day. She doesn't have to. And according to increasingly loud whispers circulating at the highest levels of women's basketball, she may finally be ready to execute her exit strategy. This is where the narrative hit its boiling point, and where confirmation from voices tied to the Team USA camp dramatically shifted the power structure of the sport. As union negotiations grew tense and the possibility of Clark joining a rival league became more credible, the tone from the establishment changed almost overnight. The same figures, coaches and insiders associated with Cheryl Reeves' camp, who previously dismissed her impact and defended her Olympic omission, suddenly began backpedaling at remarkable speed. Internal leaks surfaced suggesting that both national team representatives and league executives had entered full panic mode. Back-channel conversations reportedly acknowledged that Clark's camp was serious, dead serious. If the league failed to address the physical targeting, rein in the hostility, and demand a baseline level of respect from the union, she was prepared to step away. The fear of losing her cracked the establishment's armor. What slipped out wasn't just concern, it was an admission that they had pushed too far. That the resignation rumors weren't internet speculation but a legitimate strategy under active consideration by her legal and management teams. By allowing the union to escalate tensions and veterans to police the court through intimidation, leadership may have unintentionally handed Clark the perfect justification to walk away and let the entire financial structure collapse in her absence. The coaching camp that once symbolized veteran dominance suddenly faced a sobering reality. Without number 22, the ship sinks, and the brilliance of Clark's position cannot be overstated. By staying publicly silent while her management team applies pressure behind closed doors, she has effectively neutralized the veteran power structure. The same players who spent the season throwing elbows and taking media shots are now confronting a brutal truth. Their future pay raises depend entirely on keeping the player they resent satisfied. The union believed it could strong-arm the league by threatening a strike. But a strike loses all leverage if the main attraction has already exited the stage. And that is the nightmare scenario keeping league executives awake at night. Caitlin doesn't need to throw a tantrum. She doesn't need to run to the media and complain about inconsistent officiating. And she certainly doesn't need to beg for respect from players who are intimidated by the shadow she casts over the entire league. All she has to do is glance at her watch, look at the multi-million-dollar offers reportedly sitting on her kitchen table from rival leagues and international investors, and calmly shrug. That alone shifts the balance of power. The mere threat of her resignation is the ultimate checkmate. It forces the league to consider stricter flagrant foul enforcement. It pressures referees to provide the same level of protection afforded to every other marquee superstar. And it compels even the most resentful veterans to bite their tongues and smile when the cameras turn on. As the dust begins to settle on this massive internal power struggle, one truth stands above everything else. The old guard tried to break the rookie. They tried to control the narrative. They tried to leverage the system and claim the profits without acknowledging the source of the surge. But they completely underestimated the quiet, overwhelming leverage of a superstar who simply does not need them to maintain her empire. Whether she ultimately signs on the dotted line and walks away, or simply continues using the possibility as leverage to bend the WNBA into structural reform, the entire basketball world is watching in stunned fascination. The power dynamic has shifted permanently, and the veterans are about to learn exactly what happens when you bite the only hand that ever fed the boom in the first place.